And in this episode, we'll be looking at finding our place in the world. The first thing is we're going to be looking at the world map a lot, and it's actually easier to do that in ASCII. It's a bit like using Google Maps versus, a proper map. A proper map has a legend on it that tells you whether the trees that you're looking at are conifers or deciduous, and Google Maps will just have a green blob. So we're going to change to ASCII. So double click it and we'll say yes. And yes, we want to update the save game. So, right, we're in ASCII. Other than that, the options are exactly as you saw them when we created the world. Let's play. Alright, we want to go to start playing. You get continue playing if you have already started a fortress. We want to go to start playing because we've got a world that has no fortress in it, and that's the one we want to go to. And our world is Kamadi Adela. That's the one. So we have a choice of 3 different game modes, and we're going to go for Dwarf Fortress. Maybe I'll do tutorials on the others at some point, but for the moment, Dwarf Fortress. It's going to load the world that we created. Okay, now you see how the calendar up here is ticking down. That's because the world history is ticking over. If we have to reclaim a fort, or if we go into adventure mode, time will pass between us leaving our fortress and coming back to it, or leaving our fortress and enter. So we can play several games on this in this world. We can only play one at a time. So we can build a fortress, that fortress can be defeated, we can come back to the same world. Now, the history that has been created in our first fortress will still be there. The ruins of our fortress will be there. But time will tick on at least 15 days between our last fortress being defeated and our next fortress or adventure being started. So, this ASCII mess, what does it all mean? Well, the reason why I'm going for ASCII, partly because of the symbols, and the other reason is because of the wiki. Now, let me just bring that over to show you. Okay, the wiki. Now, the wiki is your friend. If it says DF 2014, then that is up to date. That's the new stuff. And we're looking for map legend. Scrolling down a little bit. What you can see is we have a legend that tells us, now we only have this for ASCII, but it tells us what all of the different marks on the map mean. And we can see which ones are evil, which ones are good, which ones are normal. We can see the different biomes. And if we scroll down, yeah, we can see whether it's a conifer or a broadleaf forest or tropical. We can see which of the sites on the map are dwarven or elves or goblins, humans, and the various other things. The thing to particularly look out for are towers. And whether you want to find one or avoid one depends very much on the type of game that you want to play. It's, do you want to have a big battle and see all of the things, especially in the 47 release. They did a lot with towers, so maybe you want that. You'll die quickly, but you'll have a lot of fun doing it. For the sake of the tutorial, because I don't want to die quickly, because I want to be able to show you how to do all the things, so I actually need to survive quite a while, I'm going to try and stay clear of towers. As long as we're on the same continent as a tower, there's every chance that we might see one eventually, but at least they won't stumble across us. They may well set out to attack us, but we'll try not to be neighbours with a tower. Goblins, I'm less worried about. The goblins are probably going to be enemies of ours anyway, but yeah, not too worried about the goblins. Back to the map. Let me explain what we're looking at here. So this is the whole world. That's what we've got on the right. This is the equivalent of a mini map. It doesn't change. The flashing X is where we are. Our cursor tells us what we're looking at on the other two. So this is a zoom on the region over here. So we can see that from the ice down the bottom, spreading up to here is approximately this area. We can see that it's going it. So for this size map, our region map is covering maybe that bottom corner. So it's maybe 1/6 of the map, maybe 1/9 of the map of the whole world. And then over in the local area, the whole square shows us that one tile that in that region. So it shows us that one thing that our cursor's flashing on. And the little box inside it is the area that we are going to play on. So we can have a zoom around and see what we can see on this map. So the world map isn't much good for understanding the detail. The region map is a good one to have a look for to see the details. Yeah, this just helps us to see roughly where we are to help orient ourselves. So let's have a look around and what can we tell? Well, yellow generally means elves. And the omega signs generally means dwarves. So we can see that down here we've got elves and dwarves. And the things that look like trees are trees. So these will be forests and woodlands and things. These little signs here, the circle with the bar underneath it, they're goblins. Now generally the key thing to look for is purple is bad, yellow are people we don't like but we might ally with if needs be, and green is just the natural environment. Anything that looks like a triangle is a mountain. Anything that looks like an upturn, like a soft N, is hills. So we can guess that when we see mountains and hills, it's going to be quite sloped. There'll be a lot of ups and downs in the map that we want to settle. Let's just scooter around and see what we can actually see on this map. Now, I can see there's a big clump of nastiness up there. Let's just go and have a look at that in a bit more detail. It's always, I spend a good amount of time having a look. Oh, let's just, while we're just bobbing over, you can see here this dwarven settlement is really rather large. It is actually bigger than a map tile, an entire map tile that we might choose to play on. And these circles here tell us that there is either a castle or a monastery, depending on the background colour. And there you can see it just there. They're not usually anything to be scared of. Castles are usually made by humans. Humans are generally friendly unless we pick a fight with them. And going a little bit further up. Okay, yes, so we can see there is quite a, there's a little bit of badness up here. Let's have a mosey over. All of this pink stuff. So in this pink stuff, if we have a look over this side, you can see that the surroundings are sinister. And just having a look at it, yeah, it looks like it's all sinister. There are different types of evil biomes. And that's a tower. It's a tower that probably is owned by goblins, but it's definitely an evil tower. Yeah, now sinister environments are a lot of fun in the Dwarf Fortress sense. You may set up a fortress in a sinister biome and find that things come back to life. You might butcher a cow and the cow's skin starts running around your fortress, terrifying your dwarves. These biomes, at the start, you might want to avoid them. And not just avoid them, you might want to avoid setting up next door to them. So, oh yes, and that's a haunted biome. That's certainly anything that dies will reanimate. But if we have a look, so there's a calm biome right next to the sinister biomes. just because it's a separate map tile that we're playing on doesn't stop something from walking in from next door and just wandering into our area. Although we will appear to be on a disconnected map, they can walk across the land. The land is still connected even though we can't see it once we start playing. A little further up here, yes, we can see, so there's two towers around here. There's this one here, that capital I, and there's another one around here, another capital I. Now, towers are where necromancers live, and as of version 47, necromancers have become extremely dangerous, extremely fun. They have probably the toughest creatures on the map to battle that might come and purposefully invade you. There are things that are tougher than that, but they're not gonna necessarily come and get you. You might stumble across them or they might stumble across you. But yes, the necromancers may well set out to purposefully invade. So we're going to avoid being neighbours with any of the necromancers for the purpose of this tutorial. And what will happen over time is when you see something like this, so we've got a tower here, probably a goblin tower, and all of this purple around it is its sphere of influence. So it's been making the world a bad place. And you can see that this necromancer's tower, it's been the influence has been spreading and it's been corrupting the world around it. But this one hasn't. And the reason for that is possibly because the dwarves have been keeping it in bay. Maybe they've been attacking it and fighting it back. So it's the area around it is a bit more neutral. And that happens. It could be that the dwarves may have allied with maybe elves in the area or humans in the area, and between them they have managed to beat back the evil in this area. Now, having another look around, we have the 0 down here. That is, there you see it, that is a tomb. Tombs are particularly interesting in adventure mode sometimes, but of little significance to us. We might send a party out there to go and investigate it at some point. Here's another tower with a sphere of influence around it. Now, red generally means desert. It just means that it's sand. So red we don't normally have to worry about, but just check it out, because at least to my eyes, I'm a little bit colourblind. Sometimes the reds and purples can look very similar. Let's just have a look down here, for example. This looks red to me, and it's not sand. No, it's a terrifying biome. In a terrifying biome, it's likely that it will be raining poisoned meat or slime or something that is going to absolutely horrify our dwarves. Could be dwarven blood. The A's that you see here, they are all humans. So they've got some human settlements over there. We've got a few more towers with goblins around them over here. Like I say, they're not, as long as you don't stray into the purple areas, they're not too bad to set up camp next to, because the goblins are not really interested in attacking you until you've reached a certain level in your fortress. They don't waste their time unless you're worth going for. Oh, we have another tower here. Again, it doesn't have a sphere of influence around it, so I'm guessing that the neighbours have managed to fight it backwards. And heading up a little further. Ooh, that looks bad. That's we've got a proper spread of evil around there. But I guess there's a few elves just tucked in the corner. So if you see an I or a back to front P, they are elven places. Oh, and the Mu sign as well. In yellow. They are elven civilization, but you see there's only a few of them, and elves usually come en masse. There's a lot more goblins than elves, so it's likely that the goblins have been battling the elves and doing them a lot of damage. Those elves are at risk of being driven out of their homes, actually. So that something's causing a lot of evil in that area, and it's likely to spread. Now, while we are up in this area, what you can see is that there's a bit of a continent here, and that continent isn't connected, even though there's ice. It's not connected by land to the rest of it. So if we were to set up on this continent, if we found a nice place, we would find that we were cut off from the rest of the societies. So we want to choose a fairly large landmass, one that is connected to everywhere else, not one that's disconnected. Now, if you're playing your first fortress and you want to learn just how to build and survive, and you don't want invasions and attacks and too much to do with the others, you can kind of go hermit and find yourself a little island to set up on. You will still find some things coming over there, or you may still be a target. You'd probably be okay. It's going to be a lot quieter on an island than on a connected continent. But we want a connected continent because we want to see all the things. But yes, if you want to understand the symbols better, have a look at the wiki and have a look at the legends and just have a good poke around on the map and get a feel for it. And then you'll start to, as you start to understand the symbols more, you start seeing the landscape in your mind's eye. So I find this map a lot easier to use in ASCII, but when I'm playing the game itself, I'll use a graphics pack because things are moving and changing, and I don't want to be trying to fathom out what the symbols mean. I actually want little pictures of things then. So let's talk about what type of area we want to settle in. We've talked about what sort of neighbours we want. We get more information over here. So surroundings. There are various types of surroundings, and if I just pull up the wiki, it is worth having a look at surroundings. Down here, it will tell you there are 9 different surroundings that you can go for. Now, what I'm going to look for a relatively quiet fortress is one of these 4. And I'd actually prefer either a calm or a wilderness because they are more natural, more like real life. The good biomes, the serene and the mirthful, they're just a little bit weird. But yeah, so calm and wilderness would be my preference, but I'll go serene and mirthful if we can't find a good calm or wilderness environment. The other thing we can look at is, this is the biome that we're looking at here. So it's telling us that we're looking at a temperate conifer forest right there. Let's just move on to a different spot and find somewhere with multiple biomes. Look at how close the elves and the dwarves have set up next to each other there. I wonder if they are enemies or friends. Okay, here we see there is one biome, it's got hills in it in the corner, and a different biome up there, Badlands. Now, Badlands is not a sign of evil. It just means that there's very few trees, it's probably very hot, there'll be very little rain, not much growth. In this case, these Badlands have got no trees and no other vegetation, so it's just complete bare soil. That would be quite a difficult start. Okay, so this particular tile that we're on here, you can see that there are some hills over this side, and there are some trees over that side. If we look down here, you can see that there's the F1 and F2 keys tell us that we can switch between the biomes. So at the moment, we will be on key F1, and that's a temperate broadleaf forest. So if we have a look at F2, it's a rocky wasteland. F1, broadleaf forest. And they are the biomes that are within the area of our that we might choose. It's called the Embark area, the area of the map that we would play in if that's where we chose. Now there's a few other things that will change as we switch biomes. So The temperature could change, but rarely does. The trees can change a lot. So you can have half your map might be heavily forested. The other half of the map, well, in this case it's scarce. It could have no trees at all. Same with vegetation. And the surroundings can be completely different. You can have a good biome on one half of your map and a terrifying evil biome on the other half of your map, which can make for a very interesting game, actually. Now, trees, certainly for my tutorial series, and if you're new to the game, you probably want to make sure that you've got better than scarce. So either jungle, heavily forested, or woodland, because dealing with few trees is a little bit tricky until you know how to do it. But you'll get by. It's just maybe not a handicap that you want at the start. Now, the other thing that will change if you have multiple biomes is what you find there. Alright, this is quite interesting. So in this particular area here, we're in an area called the Mighty Jungle. In Biome F1, we've got sands, some soil, one shallow metal. We don't know what metal that is, but it'll be in around about the first 10 layers. We've got multiple deep metals and a flux stone layer. We'll talk more about those. But in Biome F2, we've also got some clay and we've got more than one shallow metal. So when you have more than one biome on the map tile that you're playing on, you might dig down and find that you have copper as your shallow metal. But if you move a bit west or a bit north, wherever your other biome is, if you dig down to the same level, you might find instead that it's silver instead of copper, or ideally iron. We all like to find iron. Now, because the different biomes have different contents, trying to find the ideal place to set up can be a little bit tricky. So Dwarf Fortress has helped us out with something. We can search and find a place. So let's do that. Right. Now I'm going to play on quite a large map. So I'm going to start altering these over here, and you do that with the arrow keys. So I'm going to move, it's actually the up and down arrow keys move between the parameters, and it's the left and right that move the parameters up and down. So I'm going to say search for a tile that is 6 by 6. Now that's quite a large area to play on, but I have limited my population. Savagery, I don't really want high savagery and I don't want high evil, but search anyway. We'll see what you find. Elevation, I don't mind. We can say low, medium or high, but yeah, I don't mind. Temperature, I don't mind. Rain, I don't mind. Drainage, I'm not worried about. Flux stone layer, we definitely want a flux stone layer. And I would highly advise you, it's the one thing that it doesn't matter what type of game you're playing, whether you want a evil one that's gonna have a big fight, you probably want a flux stone layer anyway. Flux stone is necessary to make steel, and you use a lot of it in making steel. Aquifers, no. Aquifers, no. River, it'd be nice to have a river. In fact, yes, I need a river for what I want to show you, so I'm going to say yes. Shallow metals, we want multiple shallow metals. That way there is more of a likelihood that you'll come across iron. And deep metals, we'll just say yes. Any deep metals will do. You can say we want multiple, but yes, just any deep metals. And soil, I would like to have at least some. And clay, because I'm hoping to show you how to do some of the clay stuff, or I might want to, I'll say yes and just see if it finds it. Now, it might not find something that meets all of those criteria, but let's try it. So it's enter to do search. And now it's going to scan across the map, starting at the top here and going down, and then it'll come down here and then down there. And it's calculating, it's searching across the tiles to see if it can find anywhere. And it looks like it has, because we can see a couple of green areas. Now this does mean that we're going to have to put up with some flashing green X's once it's done its search, but it's just so useful because you might look for particular criteria, and half your criteria might be in one biome and half the criteria might be another, and searching in an entire world is quite a feat. Alright, so all of those green X's is what it's found that meets the criteria that we've put in here. So we're going to escape to browse results, and now I'm going to have a look over this and I'll get back to you when I've found somewhere that I want to talk about, or ideally found somewhere where I want to settle. Well, I think I found our spot. Controversially, it's very, very close to an elven settlement. It's actually somewhere that we were browsing over before. So over here you can see the very edge of where the elves are. So we're going to set up camp right next door to the elves. We'll see how that goes. That might be trouble. The reason why I've chosen here is because we have 2 biomes, and across those 2 biomes we have everything. So in biome F1 we've got sand, we've got some soil, we've got 1 shallow metal, 2 deep metals and a flux-stone layer. Or at least 2 deep metals. We've got multiple deep metals. But in biome 2, if we have a look at that one, we've also got clay. And we've got double shallow metals. So we could have maybe even 3 shallow metals. We've got multiple deep metals, which may be different to the deep metals in biome F1. Another flux-stone layer. Now this is the area that it pointed me to straight away, but it's worth just having a little look over. So when I said find it, and then I moved over here, it's moved my cursor to this area. It says this is a 6x6 area that contains everything that you're looking for and none of the things that you've said no to. But you can see it's just one little corner of the map that has clay, that has the second biome, and I'd like a little bit more. So what we can do is move this tile over a little bit and just see what we've got over there. It says down here, it's U, M, K and H to move the local area. So if we were to set up a little bit over to the left, to the west, that would be H. Let's just slide over a little bit and see if we still get what we want. Let's see how far over we go before we lose the F1 biome. Looks like we get enough F1 there. So yes, if we were to set up home here, we would have sand and some soil, 1 shallow metal, some deep metals and a flux-stone layer running right the way through the middle of the map. But in this area here, we would have clay and multiple shallow metals. So that to me sounds like what we might want to go for. Now let's have a look at what else we can do here. The Realms of Wonder is our world. The Wise Continent is this continent that we're on. It's probably that whole area there. And we're connected to all of this. Notes allow us to place a note on the map. I've never really found those useful, but maybe you will. Now, if we wanted to increase the size of an area, maybe we started off by searching a 4x4 and we found a good area, but we just wanted to make it a little bit bigger. Or maybe we did a search on a very big area and then we could make it smaller to tune it down. We could do that. So, for example, maybe, in fact, we could do this. Do I really need it to be that tall? Because I'm probably not going to worry about north of the river. So what we could do is shrink the map size a little. That would be capital M to make it smaller north to south. There we go. So we'll be playing on a 6x5 map instead. And that's, yeah, why not? That's probably more suited. Looking at this particular zone, I think that's probably what we'll go for. Now, heading down here, yeah, F1 and F2 to view the biomes. If you don't get an F1, F2 option, then it's because it's all one biome. And I've seen up to 4. You can get F1, F2, F3, F4 with lots of different biomes all on the same Embark tile. Now, tab. This is an important thing. It's always worth looking at. And this changes the information that we're given over here. So if we tap once, it tells us who our neighbours are. And if it's got a red line, that means we're at war with them. So what we can see is that elves are our neighbours. Well, we know that. We can see them if we look out the window. We're not at war with them, which, bearing in mind how close we are, is probably a good thing. So we've got dwarves, elves and humans, and goblins are neighbours. So we're not neighbours with a tower, but because they are on a connected continent, that doesn't mean we're safe from them either. And if we tab again, now this gives us a choice of civilization, and it gives us a choice as well as to which civilization we want to be part of. So we are dwarves, we only get a choice to be part of the dwarven civilizations, and there's 5 different civilizations of dwarves on the map. Usually you want to look for a civilization that is close to you. Probably a good idea, but there's 2 things that are significant. If you choose a civilization that is very small, then there's a chance that your home civilization will become extinct. Then you will end up being king, or you will end up having a king in your fortress. But it also might mean that you stop getting migrants to your fortress. You might have difficulty getting trade. The traders might have little to sell to you. The opposite extreme, if you go for a very large civilization, then there's not as much of a chance that you're going to end up being the king of that civilization, but they'll probably have more migrants to send to you, and they'll probably have a wider range of goods to trade with you as well. So what we can do, if you use the plus and minus keys, that will move you up and down the civilizations and you'll see them flash. Now the best map to watch is the world map, because we want to see the large areas. So let's just go down the list. So it's plus to go down. The Tame Fountain has just been highlighted in blue. The Virtuous Room is in blue now. Now looking at the Tame Fountain versus the Vigorous Room, Virtuous Room is a bit smaller. Sword of Clobbering is very tightly packed over here. The Abbey of Catches spreading out quite a lot around here. And the Vigorous Stake. Okay, so it suggested the Vigorous Stake to us. And there's a scattering of dwarves around the area there. That's relatively small. What should we go for? I'm thinking more the Abbey of Catches. They are going to be enemies with the tower. For sure, they're battling the tower. And that might encourage the tower to see us as an enemy that's worthy of attacking at some point. Because I would like the Necromancer to wander in our direction, just not for a good while. Not until we've got our defences well set up and a really good military. So maybe we should be part of the Abbey of Catches. All we need to do is just leave it on the Abbey of Catches. Let's tab again. Okay, the elevation. So the pink area is the map area that we've chosen. And we can see that it's medium high. We're not on any hilltops. There is a hilltop here. Yeah, but we're not at the top of a mountain. There looks like we've got a bit of a slope down to the right, down to the east there. Yeah, it's kind of middling. And as to why that matters, if you are extremely low, you might find it difficult to dig a deep fortress before you start coming across some of the more interesting underground features, shall we say. So having a little bit of height at least is a good thing, although the higher you are, you're more likely to have problems with trees, not having trees, and it's more likely to be uneven terrain. But yeah, that's fairly good. So slopes, how slopey is it? There isn't a right or wrong about this. It just depends on what you fancy doing, what style of fort you fancy going for. I think that for a tutorial, having quite a flat area would be a good thing because there's less moving through the Z layers for me to show you what's going on. So our little corner of the world here, certainly to the south, it's a bit slopey. I mean, I would prefer it if it was all zeros, to be honest. Well, maybe not all zeros. If it was all ones, that would be perfect. But twos we can cope with. And then back to the biome view. So that's where we're going to go for. I'll just point out here, you can see that it's E to embark, so that would send us off in the world. If we were to move our selection just down one, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to say go try moving down just one, so it takes in the wall of the elves. You can see that's now greyed out. You cannot start in an area that somebody else has already colonised. So let's go back up again. Now the Embark Assistant is something that's new. It's part of DF Hack. I don't think it's part of the vanilla game. And, well, it's kind of a little bit cheaty because it tells you, if you press A, it'll tell you exactly what ores you've got in that area. And I don't think we really want to know that. I think we want everything to be a surprise. We want to hope that we've got iron. We don't want to know that we've got iron. Yeah, so I'm not going to press A. Instead, I'm going to press E to embark. And we have selected a larger area. Choose a smaller area if you experience lags. Well, I think we'll be okay. So I'm going to press enter to embark, but I think we'll do that in the next episode.